Hi friends, today I'm showing you how to color your stamped images using alcohol inks and pair it with an alcohol inked background. This video is part of Altenew's Garden Love video hop. Come hop along, be inspired, and win tons of prizes. My card today features the Tropical Jungle stamp set, which is one of Altenew's latest releases. This is an outline stamp set with tons of foliage that is really fun to color up. This set also comes with a coordinating die set that makes it really easy to color and cut your images out. I'm going to start off by using VersaFine Clear Twilight ink to stamp out the images on a piece of poster board. Poster board is a great surface for working with alcohol inks, and I have linked below the poster board that I use for this technique. So then you can see I go ahead and ink up my image and stamp it down. I do make sure to prep my surface with my embossing buddy before stamping. I chose to use the speckled egg distress glaze for heat embossing today. The fun part about using this is that it is a translucent powder that gives a glossy finish, but at the same time, because it does not have an opaque color, it allows the blue of my ink to shine through. I go ahead and pour my embossing powder generously over the stamped image, tap off the excess, and bring in my heat gun to melt the embossing powder. As much as I love watching my embossing powder melt, I'm not going to leave all that footage in, so you don't have to stare at me heating and melting up that embossing powder. So next I bring in my dies and go ahead and die cut the images and lay them out in front of me. Now it's time to get ready to play with some alcohol inks. I protect my surface with a piece of paper towel and I bring in a cup. I pour out some 99% isopropyl alcohol that I'm going to be using as my medium to dilute and paint. I bring in a pipette and I also bring in my Ranger alcohol inks. I have a little plastic palette in which I put a drop of each different color. I have some pinks, greens, yellows, and a blue. I use Pinata Brass, which is my favorite gold, which has already been diluted with some isopropyl alcohol, and I mix it up with my inks. As you can see here, similar to watercoloring, I'm going to be using a brush and dunking it in the alcohol instead of water so that the brush is wet and able to move the alcohol ink around. Also, if you notice, I'm using some really worn out old brushes because alcohol inks do ruin your brushes. So do not bring out your precious watercolor brushes to do this. And again, there is no real technique behind this. You just play, have fun, color up your images. Don't worry about staying inside the lines, going outside the lines. All is good when it comes to playing with alcohol inks. Another thing to notice is that because the inks have been diluted, you will see that the colors are pretty light here and not as vibrant as you saw in the card I originally showed in the pictures. What I do is after I apply my first coat and have everything covered up, I bring in some concentrated alcohol inks and then go ahead and add it to the areas that I want to highlight or that I wanted to pop off the card. Another important tip that I want to give you here is, unlike watercoloring, you cannot just go back and dip your brush into the pot of alcohol every time you want to switch to a different color. This will contaminate your alcohol and turn it into a certain color, and then, it's going to blend everything and create mud. So every time you get done with one color, the color that you're using, make sure to scrub your brush onto a piece of paper towel to remove any extra ink before you rinse or clean the brush further in that pot of alcohol. So that way you can keep your alcohol cleaner till the end of the coloring and you don't have to keep switching it out. Now I'm going to turn on some music so you can relax and watch me color the rest of the images. Now, if you are impatient and do not like to watch me color like me, you can jump ahead to the 13th minute where I start working on the background for my card. But I did relax and enjoy myself in the coloring process, and I hope you give it a try too. Once I'm happy with the coloring of my image, I go ahead and splatter some alcohol on it just for fun. At this point, I'm ready to start creating my background, and I grab a piece of poster board and use my pipette to add a generous amount of isopropyl alcohol on it. And then I add some yellows and greens and go ahead and use my blowing tool. I've linked it in the supplies below. It's actually a hairstyling brush with the brush end taken out of it. It does have a low heat, low pressure setting, so that allows me to, move my ink around without blowing it all over the place. Again, I wasn't happy with how vibrant my image was, so I went ahead and add some more alcohol and more inks and played around with it. Honestly, there was no end to this process. You can just keep going as long as you want or stop with the first layer. Suit yourself right here. So once I'm happy with that background, I will go ahead and start arranging my pieces on there. But before that, I did realize, as I mentioned before, that the pink wasn't popping enough for me. So I do go ahead and bring in some concentrated pink ink to kind of add a little bit more of a pop to that image. Then I go ahead and add a little bit of splatters using just the isopropyl alcohol on my background. Again, this is just to add a little bit more of that whimsical effect. I love splatters on my watercolor cards, so why not do it on my alcoholic background? Yeah, so then I go ahead and bring in liquid adhesive to add the largest piece down on the background. I cut off the excess using my scissors, and I make sure to save that large piece because I want to bring it back and add it as one of the layers on top. I use foam tape, quite a generous amount of foam tape, to pop up the remaining elements. And there you can see I bring that tiny little piece to add another layer on top. I do love a lot of dimension and drama on my cards, so there you go. Once I'm done arranging that, I start working on my sentiment. The sentiments in the stamp set are beautiful and bold, and I just go ahead and stamp it out using the same ink that I used to stamp my original images, to stamp on a scrap piece of paper. I trim it down and adhere it using glue, so it's going to go right on top. Now I'm ready to add my panel onto my card base. I bring in a white side folding card base. I typically use Nina Solar White, 110 pound, and then glue it down using liquid adhesive. Once that is done, I add some confetti. This is gold confetti from my stash, and I just sprinkle it randomly over it and use glue again to kind of stick them all down. This completes my card for today, and I hope you enjoyed watching my video. If you did, do hit that like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I hope to see you again. Thank you so much for stopping by. Have a wonderful day.